Yes, man. Then welcome to another episode of 4Man Up. Today we are going to be discussing accountability. I'm here with my brother Abba, Isaac, and Rev Tim once again. It's an honor to have you guys on this show today, and I'm looking forward for us to really dive into this topic. So before we go into our questions and our discussion, I've got a short video that I want to really share with you guys. That really stood out to me in regards to how men hold each other accountable. So I'm going to show you this video, and then we're going to have some honest reactions to it. Okay. Sweet.
Be honest, who do you call when you are at your lowest? Who is that one person?
Nobody. I'm a man. No one cares.
Not a single soul. Nobody.
No one. Because I'm all alone.
I think I speak for a lot of people when I say that I don't call anyone.
Nobody. I'm a guy. Nobody gives.
Speaking for the guys when I say this, literally no one.
Y'all call someone?
Nobody. Just nobody. Got no one to talk to, so nobody. Who cares? Nobody.
No one. I'm a man.
Wow. Interesting. Said no one.
Nobody. No one cares for me.
No one cares for me. I'm a man. Guys, who do you talk to when you're at your lowest? That was a group of 10, about 5 or 6 guys, different ages, all said the same thing. So there's clearly something there, guys, that no one to talk to when they're at their lowest, you know. So, I don't know, Isaac, Abba, when you're low, like, if you can be candid today, you know, who do you actually talk to? Or do you talk to anyone?
Yeah, so I think I'll just kind of go off a life experience. I think you remember when my dad died. Yes. It was an ugly time for me. I was confused, didn't really know how to process it. And my wife was there, family was there, it was brilliant, but I needed someone else to talk to. So this is when effectively 412 Men and I've been going on for about a year then. Was it even up to a year?
I think so.
Well, yeah, it was still very new. And I dipped in and out. I wasn't as consistently coming as I was, but I found a community there where for the first time I could just kind of pour out the pain I was feeling that Monday. And so you find the community, you try and talk to people that understand you. But just to follow on from that, it's weird because before that, I would tell you, I was like most of these guys, you don't talk. And why we don't talk is because, once again, we are taught not to talk as men. I still naturally am. If something upsets me, I usually like to pour it all out and cry about it. But there came a shift in my life when I was about 16, but from about 15 to 17, where I was told, oh, that's gay. What are we crying about? Stop talking, that's gay. Like, get over it. Honestly, it was so toxic. It was so toxic. And I laugh about it now because I'm thinking, oh my word, that's mad.
I heard that word in a long time.
That's mad. To caveat that, I even had pastors and people in the faith telling me I was too emotional or I was too eager to talk about everything. So it started to make me close up. And funny thing is, the talking, I got it from my father, as in, if you met my father when he was well, if you wanted someone to cry and talk to you, he could do that. You tell him there's something wrong, you'll see a grown man sit there and just cry for ages for you. So, no, Dad, it's fine. He's like, no, what you're saying is painful. It's painful, and he will cry with you.
That's healthy.
So I took that on from during my life, and then I stopped because I was told that talking is some form of weakness, and you're not manly enough.
Wow, Isaac, man, that was really powerful and really intriguing to hear your journey of how it changed for you. So you're growing up in a home with a father that's present emotionally, where you're witnessing him cry, and clearly provided a safe space for you to express your emotions. And it took an outside external influence to really cause you to actually, check that or challenge that and actually switch from that, which we could all probably, say is the usual peer pressure, you want to please your friends or look cool or fit in and whatnot. So like, how would you say you transitioned from 15, 17, you said?
Yeah.
From it being, that's gay, what are you doing, closing off? Are you still recovering from that up until now? Or like...
Like, I wouldn't say I'm recovering from it now. I think I'm a lot more open with it. But I think it was just the idea that talking shows some form of weakness. And it was a dialogue that was pushed to me consistently. Or when you talk, you only say certain stuff to not show the real picture of how you're feeling about something. So when you talk, you say that it's upset you, but you don't really say how bad it's upset you. You don't really pour out all your heart into it. You just say, I'm upset because of A, B, and C. And you say it in such a sync way that you look like a commander in the margin and a big boy while you're doing it. Because if you're a bit not together, suddenly no one wants to talk to you. You're soft.
Guys, can you guys relate to this story at all in regards to your...
In upbringing? I can definitely relate. At some point in our formation as men, it becomes, uncool, soft, to relay, deep pains and hurts. We mask it with bravado. We'll be so extra to cover up weakness. And so, that story definitely resonates. But it's definitely an interesting video.
Yeah. Who do you say that you've talked to when you're at your lowest?
At my lowest? I talked to the father. That's the Christian answer, isn't it? Yeah. I talked to the big man. Don't think I don't pray now. I pray. I talk to the big man. Box. Okay. Yeah. I talked to my wife. I'm a twin. I talked to my twin brother. So I'm a twin. And then I guess I have some, brothers in the faith that I can share with, the real, raw, transparent when things are really going on. Now, could I do it more? I think that's a very good question. Ooh. Yes, because I think listening to the video, sometimes I think how, their responses and we hear it, but sometimes I think that's self-inflicted by us. That we say we have nobody or there's no one I can call, nobody cares. Is that true? Probably not. Probably not. Somewhere, somehow somebody cares. But we often underutilize our relationships because of what Brother Isaac was saying. We're taught, don't do that. So, I have people I can talk to when I get really down. Do I talk to them enough? Probably not. Do I talk to them quick enough as well? Probably not. Yeah.
There's a good question that I think we're going to touch on again, but I want to hear from Abba, like, who do you talk to when you're at your lowest?
You know what? I think that's a real interesting question for me. I'm probably more so would have been a lot more difficult to answer prior to marriage in that regards.
Ooh, serious?
Because I think marriage has now opened me up now to this new space where it's necessary to speak to people more.
Okay.
And speak to Manda more, if I can put it that way. It's given me, obviously, on one side, a very, strong, very capable and, lovely woman that I can speak to and, share my thoughts and some of my deepest, issues with. But again, I think sometimes there's just some issues that you got to discuss with Amanda.
Yeah.
That your wife may understand, she can understand, but her interpretation will be different, is what I've gathered. So
that's real.
The man will be able to interpret a lot, but and the reason why I say marriage, because now I'm now able to share a lot more things that I believe that impacts me and have been impacting me, and now I have a lot more articulation for it as well, and it enables me to do so. But also now I find that it's opened me up to this network of people in terms of married men that I would not necessarily have been able to prior to marriage, if that makes sense. So the wisdom. But I'll end with this, and I said it. I think I mentioned the 412 men the other day in regards to there's different people now I see for different things in some regards. There's a set number of people that I'll go to for a set number of things, but I don't want to separate or segregate individuals in certain boxes, but it's about the capacity that they can take and how, mature they are to handle some of my deepest, darkest thoughts. And again, it might be my issue in terms of me thinking and overthinking things in terms of how they may react. And that's something obviously I'm still going through. And going back to your statement, I think definitely can share a lot more quicker. I think quicker is the key. Yeah. More is eventually that will happen. Like what we spoke about, when the pressure comes, that's when we're forced to share certain things. Yeah. But for me, I want to be able to be in a position where I share a lot quicker and not try and say I can deal with it myself until it gets a bit too much.
Yeah.
This is good. This is interesting because if I ask myself that question, like you said with Tim, I feel like being married now, my wife is in a pole position to probably even clock before I've clocked that I'm at my lowest. Yeah. And it's shown me a level of emotional maturity of where, as men, sometimes, when you're feeling something, but we have this propensity just to keep it going, right? Yeah. You know what I mean, kind of thing. And where now, sometimes we hit rock bottom before we realize we've hit rock bottom. You know what I mean, kind of thing. You guys get what I'm saying, kind of thing. Like, not to say that we don't have any awareness that something's going on, but it hasn't hit us to the point where we need to do something about it.
Right.
So now when I'm hearing a question, who to talk to when I'm low, it's almost as if like that's being interjected by my wife being able to probably identify that, and then through conversation, through her love, through her whatever, get me to what's it called, dissect that. And then when I do realize it, and then maybe I'm hiding it, if I can say that loosely, or I'm just trying to hold it down, I think I write a lot, I think my notes on my iPad and my iPhone and my journal have probably heard and seen some things that not probably any guy or woman has, including my wife.
So you're accountable to your iPad.
That's basically what I'm trying to say by saying it.
He did kind of say that,
Technically speaking, and then there's probably only two guys that I feel like, yeah, literally. But it was deep because I when you guys are saying quicker, and if I could do more, it's just like, you know what? Yes. Yeah, and yes. And then, so I want to dive into like, why is it that's the case?
Apologies. Just to add to that, I know you all said your wives. Yeah. Just to second that, I do talk to my wife. No, because this is going to go out. And Rev said my wife. You said your wife. You said your wife. My wife is going to watch this, and I will get in trouble. So, honey, I do love you, and I do talk to her. She can see me at my lowest.
We weren't judging you, bro.
Thank you. Just went out there.
She's seen it, fam. Live and direct. Front row seats.
You don't have to say it. It goes without saying.
As you were saying, that was a deep question about to ask. I was just thinking, everyone's mentioned their wives. Just
cover yourself.
Yeah.
Say no more. 5
years married.
So why is it that all of us here, different ages, different experiences, different upbringings, everything different about us, all of us can say we could do more and do it quicker.
That's good. I think when I'm going to use another buzzword, because accountability has become a buzzword.
Yes, sir.
But there's another buzzword as well that we hear often, which is intentionality.
Oh.
And I think
be intentional.
You have to be when it comes to being accountable.
Yes.
You have to be intentional.
Okay, sir.
It's not really something that happens, just by happenstance or by accident. You actually have to go out your way to say, hey, can we talk? I'm going to open up. And I think, again, it's just far easier. It's far, far more convenient not to do that.
Yeah.
It's just far easier to keep it trucking.
I still talking like that, because when you use that word intentional, it means then for me to even be intentional, that the first step is admittance.
Yeah. Wow. Admittance usually means weakness.
Means weakness.
Right?
So I'm going back to Genesis now, where I'm hearing God say, be naked and unashamed. Yeah. So then there's this thing of where, in order to be intentional, to even before I become accountable, there has to be a level of admittance, of even shame.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah.
And when I hear shame, what I see is my mouth being closed. You know what I mean? Kind of thing, because how dare you utter what's happening in the dark? You know what I mean? Kind of thing. So it's almost as if there's this unspoken fear of accountability, which looks like light, which comes like exposure, where if I come out, it's almost as if now I've had to admit it, acknowledge it, you know what I'm saying? Deal with that shame. And then even now, if I step out a bit more and come into the light, will I be rejected or accepted? You know what I mean? Kind of thing. I'm just trying to break it down. As I talk, I'm listening, I'm thinking, I'm like, okay, what's the step-by-step process? I have to actually admit that something is going on, which requires us as men, which now for a question, why is that now a struggle to accept now, you know? You know, so it's just like, as I talk, I'm thinking, so what is that? You know what I mean? So
where does it come from?
Where does it come from?
I think, like, I remember, I think is it in Hebrews where the author of Hebrews saying there's no temptation that's common, that's not common unto man.
Yes.
In that sense. So that we're feeling shame for what probably all of us go through.
That's 100%.
And we refuse to uncover probably what we're all trying to cover. So it's like, it's a trap.
It's a trap, man. We're killing each other, basically. When you think about it, if we're now one body,
right,
and everybody is going through and suffering, but nobody actually opens up. It's almost as if like we're committing, like, you know, loosely speaking, like self-suicide. We're just dying by ourselves rather than an opportunity to come together where we can actually help one another. The whole joint supply element. That's really powerful.
I think just leading on to that, I think for me personally, where it comes from, and I've just been thinking about it, I think there's a lack of representation in that regards, a lack of examples, a lack of community that model that type of approach. And over time, as I've seen, the more I've been in communities that do model that type of approach, the more I share, naturally. The more I'm with friends, I meet friends that are able to share. I meet people now who are able to come forth. And then I'm happy to share mine, not in a, me too kind of a thing, but in a like, let's journey together. Like, let's journey together in that regards. Like, and I think one of you guys just said, I forgot who said it, but in regards to, I think you just mentioned in terms of like, we're all going through the same thing or similar things. So why don't we just share what we're all going through and help each other anyways? And I think because as men, we've shot ourselves off a lot over me personally, I've done the same. It stops us from continuing in that same, that same type of approach in that community. And I think it just really restricts us a lot. And I've seen it happen to me over the years. And again, it starts from the home. Like you mentioned, unfortunately I have my father around me. And then also obviously having to be the man of the house and everything, you feel like you've got to have a certain, type of position where you can't share your weakness. And also I think this is why I think it's important to have men as well around you, because I mentioned it earlier, even with my mother, for example, there's certain things I couldn't share with her because she wouldn't understand. I'll give a very candid explanation, very candid. So, when I was young, was open up to the, world of masturbation, pornography and all of these things. And for years I was going through, and I remember in secondary school, I remember one day my mom, discovered, or she found out what I was doing effectively. She didn't see me directly, but I think she saw semen or whatever it was. I'm going to be candid. And all she said to me, she called me into the room. I remember this very, very vividly. All she said to me was, whatever you're doing to yourself, you got to stop doing it. No reason as to why. There was no rebukers to say. It wasn't a man speaking. It's like she didn't have the language to explain to me why. She just said to me, whatever you're doing to yourself, stop doing it. That was it. And for me, it was like, okay, cool. Is this it? My mom's like, is this it? And it just enabled me to continue in that regards. So I think coming back to all accountability stuff, I think it being modeled from the start, from the home, is also very key and very important. And I think that's why as men, and for me, in the future, by God's grace, if I have children, it will be something key for me to model to them as well. Because I think they can continue in that same vein.
That's good. That's really powerful because with you giving your reasons as to why you have it, which comes from modeling, there'd be an example. And then we hear your story where you did have one, and then obviously it took, external influences, which was also another community, another area that was of behavior being modeled. It kind of shows me then, all of us are reflecting each other in different ways, whereby we're not as independent or you know what I'm saying, our own man, as much as we think we are, as much as we're being molded or being shaped by what's around us, you know, on a highly influential level. So then there's a direct connotation now, or correlation, should I say, between accountability and community then.
That's deep. That's
So,
serious.
so essentially now, our level of accountability has been expressed in our lives right now. It can, to a degree, can be a vivid reflection of the community that we're keeping now. So then, if you know we're having this mantra in culture where we need, you need to hold men more accountable now, you know, and it's women that are saying this to the men, then you know, have we subconsciously fostered a culture amongst ourselves or a way of living that's allowed this thing of where, you know, man, they may do certain things and, you know, we don't call it out, you know what I'm saying? You know, it's because like I was having a discussion with my wife, you know, she was very unhappy with the famous, you know, hip hop star that kicked out his wife that was pregnant or had a baby outside the house on Instagram Live. Like everyone saw it, and she said that, you know, none of his counterparts or anybody came out. It was just women that came out. Where's all the man there? Where all of his rapper friends that said, look, bro, that was mad. You know what I'm saying? You know, and dealing with the whole mantra of like, why don't men hold men accountable? So as you guys are talking, and we're giving our candid, honest, real reasons, I'm like, wow, then there's a community friendship thing here where maybe like you said before, you have your different friends, and maybe we don't have enough of those friends that are in this inner circle place where they need to be penetrating or challenging or knowing the true eye of what's going on that I'm invited. Therefore, we're subconsciously perpetuating a culture where men are just doing madness and man are just like, you know, that's him. You know what I mean? Like, boy, you know what I mean? That's not me. You know what I'm saying? That whole phrase, that's not me, is almost excusing me now having responsibility as your brother's keeper to be like, yo, fam, what you did there was a bit mad.
That's powerful because we see right early on in the book, in the scriptures.
We do, sir.
Accountability.
We do, sir.
Right at the beginning.
Brothers.
In terms of being your brother's keeper.
Yes.
Being your brother's protector and
looking
and investigating into the well-being of your brother. And so we see that intention from God's part, but we also see the destruction of it from man's part. And I think there's always that tension in communities of men that God wants us to be more accountable to one another, to form tribes, brotherhoods that keep us on the path. You know, there's ample, you know, talk about bad company and what it can do to your character, your communication, your habits. But there's also, I think, that rebellion in us that sometimes it doesn't even manifest as open rebellion. It's just that sometimes I know as a man, I find myself reverting back into my own world, in my own issues, just for a season. And again, if I'm not intentional, I'll stay there.
Yeah. That's deep. That's deep. As you're saying that, then, because that incident is two brothers, the first, I mean, we witnessed the first murder, I believe, in the Bible, right? Yeah. You know, and I think what's deep with the revelation of Christ saying, like, love your neighbor as you love yourself, is the area or the issue of accountability more about how we see ourselves than when we see our brother in the wrong? Meaning, when they do something wrong, it's my excuse not to be holding accountable because of how I hold myself accountable.
Wow. Nice. You're getting too deep up here.
You guys get what I'm saying here? Wow. So the reason why I won't call you out for sleeping with her is because I know what I've done.
And I was thinking, like, when you mentioned that artist,
I was going to ask that.
Probably some of his peers are like,
I can't talk because my hands are dirty too.
Exactly. I'm gonna mind my business.
You get what I'm saying here now?
I think that's a very, very strong point. Yeah. And again, I'll use a personal anecdote of mine on two different sides of the coin. And for me, the times where I couldn't call out my mandem, or I couldn't call out certain man, is because I was doing the same thing. Okay. And even go a bit deeper, I was comparing myself in that regards, right? So in regards to okay, I'm not as bad as them. I'm still doing my own thing. But it also means that, okay, cool. Just because I'm not as bad as you, I'm still doing it. It means that my hands are tied anyway, so that makes sense. But also, I think on the flip side, the times where I was able to call one of my man them out on a specific situation, I won't go into too much detail, is when I was very much comfortable and stable in my position, you know, in the faith or with whatever I was doing in that time. And so I could directly address it. And by God's grace, you know, he was very much thankful for that. And I think on both sides, we could have done that, or I could have done that, sorry. But the reason why I didn't, because I was having my own issues and my own guilt. And, you know, why should I call someone out when I'm doing my own thing anyways? We're all in the same circle. We're all feeding from the same fountain or drink from the same fountain. So inevitably, it's not going to lead into me rebuking or me addressing or me questioning what, you know, he's done in that regard. But again, it gets me to think though, what about maybe the deeper issues? So for example, you know, I don't know if you're going to go into it, like, you know, the rape culture and things of that nature.
Yeah. Wow.
Because sometimes not necessarily like the person that is the friend of the person has done that thing, if that makes sense. Yeah. It may just be that there's no language to address it, or maybe we're not as, I don't know, educated. I don't know what the situation will be, but I'm just thinking in that situation, what would stop a friend of someone that's done that addressing them and actually coming to the forefront to really tackle the situation at hand? Because that's a real serious situation that's going on.
It's like, and even as you bring it up, you know, if we're gonna like bring it all the way home, there's a reality of where, you know, there's the accusation of it. So most times men will be like, well, you know, we're man them, so like, where's the evidence? You know, we're very much very like, oh, but, you know, we need something else, you know what I mean, to say that this is what it is. And then there's the whole like, do you believe them or your boy? So the toxic loyalty comes into the play now.
Right.
Like he's not like that. And then there's this whole like, you know, like, so I feel like it's not always as black and white when it comes to calling out in that area. But at the same time, I feel like, because if we're going to take it back to the point I made, essentially, are we what we keep around us, basically?
Yes.
It's because I feel like the rape culture first finds its core from like, that's how we view and treat women, full stop. You know what I mean? Kind of thing.
Right.
So if I take it back from me now, so this is obviously now I'm a believer now. So back in the day, let's say, sorry, I'm going a bit.
Yo, go for it.
Over 18s now.
This is
so
four up. Come on, man.
Back in the day, there were, you know, it's only a certain type of female that could give you head. You could never wifey that because of the act. Then there was I'm bringing these examples now because now I've already categorized women from age 11, 12 because based on what you would do for me, what do we say? George, scared. All these words here. I'm echoing these words now because as we got older, you'd be surprised how subconsciously like these things actually affect how we classify women. So now we've got the whole body count argument where it's like, oh well, how many? You know, it's like we now have an audacity. Yeah. We've got bodies, numbers, but then we get to a place where we want to settle down. She has to be this type of way, which is like minimal numbers, or let's say she did
no numbers at all,
kind of thing. Right. So there's all these things we put on them, and so therefore now women aren't actually human beings. They're objectified. You know, they're that trophy. You know, I remember in school, like all of us we would work hard just to get mixed race girls. She has to be mixed race, green, like light skin, green eyes, and then back in my days it was just the slick kind of thingy. And then we used to argue because then normally the African girls were a bit more darker, a bit more ebony skin, but they had the back kind of thing, and the mixed girls didn't have. So there's all this. So from young, we've already just put them in boxes and categories, and everybody was almost competing to say who has the hottest chick. You know what I mean, kind of thing. Once again, that kind of had connotations of like, she's my trophy. Look at my ting. Even our words, ting.
Ting, yeah.
Yeah, ting.
So I think rape culture finds all of its roots. That's in our language and perspective in it. So now we're coming to a place where, like, what would possess a man to even force himself sexually? Then it has to come from a place of what? I believe that women are there for me to give me this.
That's what
it is. You understand what I'm saying? Kind of thing. So we can. So when I see rapists today, I'm like, you know, nobody was born a rapist, right? So I'm thinking, how did he get from a place of demanding or forcing something that's not his or his right, should I say, from a place whereby it didn't just start there. It started from this place of language, perspective, how we talk about them. You know, most of our first interaction to a woman's body is pornography and all this stuff. You know what I mean? That kind of thing there. So I'm echoing all these things because I feel like the rape culture, you know, if we're going to deal with it at its root, it goes back down to all these things now, which come, for me personally, women, you know, MTV, bro, The Box, you know what I'm saying, certain channels on Sky after a certain time.
BET Uncut.
So what?
You know about Isaac? You know about that?
You know, hey, 99998.
Save them sanctify.
Be accountable now. Tell the truth.
There was a life before.
We've got a whole culture, guys, on how that's been built off of how we see women that I think contributes to what you're saying. So now, I don't know, I feel like the accountability thing gets lost in it because we're all aspiring to be the Nellies or the 50s or whatever, and then we see how women are with them. Someone says, well, you got to be that this for me. So it's all right if I slap your bum because these men are slapping bums. Or, you know what I'm saying? It sounds dumb me saying it now, but that's what we actually subconsciously are being fed.
You're right.
By what you're seeing continuously. You know what I mean? Kind of thing. So I feel like if we're going to really tackle rape culture, is culture ready for that level of breakdown? Because it goes beyond just, hold your man accountable now. It's years of
you've got to hold
a whole
you got to hold industries
Industry.
accountable. You got to hold, you know, entertainment accountable. You've got to hold, obviously, the porn. I think when we hear the word accountability, we all, a lot of times as men, we associate that with porn and porn habits and things that nature. But yeah, it has contributed because, you know, we literally had one function for the image of a woman. And that was for our pleasure, for our ejaculation. And so you get a habit of that. Like I think you mentioned in an earlier recording, you know, 5 times a week. That's your habit.
A habit, yeah.
Or a day or whatever. That's your habit.
That's your habit, yep.
And you actually have to unlearn that.
Yeah.
And even sometimes in marriage, you have to unlearn that.
Yeah, you have to, yeah.
That she's not just there for your
pleasure.
Your pleasure, your perfunctory
And they know when it is, bruv.
So
They know
like
what you're doing.
even in marriage, rape can happen.
Yeah.
And it's taught sometimes from the pulpit. 1 Corinthians 7. Your body's not yours. So, and men have used that. 1 Corinthians 7, as Christian men have used that to rape their wives.
Wow.
So, yeah. So you're right. Are we ready to
Unpack that.
unpack the depths and deepness of what gets us to this place?
Wow.
Can I ask a question?
Ask a question, bro. I'm thought I tested what Rev Tim just said.
Accountability
Yeah.
has also been used in certain circles as a form of abuse.
Okay, so you're going
So
you go to the church, yeah?
let's take it there. All right. Apologies, Rev. Apology, Pastor. Let's take it there. I grew up in an African church where the word accountability was banded around as a way of being able to abuse people financially and emotionally. Where do we generally draw the line in terms of what we call spiritual accountability and stuff like that on occasions? And does it all tie in together? Because I'm going to be open, I'm going to be frank. I was once part of a church where it was all kind of wrapped in one, and where accountability meant I have control over your finances, I have control over your marriage, I tell you where to go, who you marry, what job to take, because I am quote unquote, you laugh, but it was ugly. Quote unquote, I am your spiritual father and you do nothing unless God tells me so. So where do we draw the line? Because you see, when we talk about accountability, and it's please take that water, sip of water, because you are gonna talk. You know, we were talking about accountability, and we've really spoken about, you know, a brother's community, which is important because my wife always nagged me. She says, you don't have enough male friends. And sometimes I sit down and say, in reality, I probably don't even have enough friends that I know and I use properly. When I mean use, people I call up and say, this is what's going on. I need help. I need someone to pray with. So my wife uses that at me a lot. But I also think of it from what I grew up with. The word accountability is so abused. So that could also be a reason why some men don't like it. So where do we see accountability in terms of the church and this phrase spiritual fathers? Because I've come to hate it, but I don't want to talk too much right now.
That's real. Yeah. 'Cause I think now, as we're talking about this work accountability, what we're already seeing, it has connotations in different contexts now.
Yeah, it
so
does.
we've gone from each other to rape culture to women. Now we're going into the church, and all of those instances is there's a common thread about in regards to relationship, but then there's also a difference in where each of them serve a particular purpose now. That difference from each one. When you were saying about your church experience, I'm just laughing because I've had similar, what's it called, experiences as well. So it's just hearing you say, it's just like, oh gosh, And obviously now look at me, I've gone through it, and I'm now a pastor, so it's like, oh, so it's just like, yo, like, what was your angle when that took place? You know what I mean, kind of thing. And I think like when you use key examples of how accountability was explained to you, it just shows you how people, these people being leaders, abuse their principle, beyond their remit. So I always tell my people all the time, like even at my church, I said, look, like, if we're going to talk spiritual authority, like my authority, when it comes to my relationship with you, is in the boundaries and remit of this setting called ecclesia, the church. The minute you step out of that so-called setting, I'm just going to use the building as an example. I don't have authority, or be like in the context of whereby where you go to eat, what time you go to bed. All these are things that you're free to whatever do. But in the vicinity of where it comes to spiritual matters that pertain to the church that you attend to, whatnot, of course, that's where my authority can be expressed in regards. And even there's boundary limits as to what that looks like. You know what I mean, kind of thing. So I feel like what's happened now is that you've used examples where pastors don't have no business, in those areas. And what I think has happened, if I'm going to be very honest with you now, and this is where we try to do a better explanation of what it means to be a spiritual father. I feel like, look, I think passing, it's going to be 3 years this year now. Like, me and my wife, I just noticed that even subconsciously, bro, sometimes the church members would treat you like the parents, or they would see you as they see their parents. Yeah. So like, I'll just be real with you. So there's 2 paradigms to it now. So this is where I'm like, accountability. The issue here is accountability is who you're accountable to, because you could be under leaders that could abuse that or manipulate that, or use that to their advantage to actually serve you in a more healthier, in a capacity way. Why am I echoing this? Because I think that the prone to be error as humans, and the full nature of man, really comes to bro. As a pastor, I'm telling you now, honestly, there is a thin line between accountability, covering and manipulation and control. Thin. No, it's thin. That's me talking from a human point of view. Like, just being very honest, very, very thin, because now I see why the Bible holds character to a leadership criteria above gift.
Yeah.
Because the minute you're accountable to me, I told my guys already, there is an element of you that's relinquishing, what's the word to use now, not to sound too, you're almost opening yourself up because of how you may respect and honor me to speak certain things into your life that may have an effect for your good or for your detriment. Yeah. So accountability will always be a risk, depending on who you're accountable to. I want to break it down from this angle, just to kind of break it down. So I want you guys to see it from both my point of view as a leader and also your point of view as a church member as well. So, like, looking back on my experience and then trying to look at it from a mature, sober perspective, I'm able to see how the common thread here was character. Because your experience, because of how painful it is, can make you detest accountability, or maybe to test the reality of the issue here isn't accountability, but who you was accountable to. Very hard to differentiate, because spiritual fathers have that substitution in life. And I think the spiritual father terminology also means, because the father name is in it, that subconsciously means that You know, and it's okay, depending on the relationship with the individual, that you invite them into areas beyond spiritual matters into your life. And if we're going to be honest, as spiritual people, I'm not just speaking to your prayer life. I'm not speaking to your whole life, or your whole life is who you are, right, kind of thing. I think sometimes there's a skew lines between, you know, counsel and instruction. You know what I mean? Kind of, you know, my advice, my perspective versus the Lord said X, Y, and Z. You know what I'm saying here? Which was, in your circumstances, if they're very smart, they can word it in a way that they make you feel like, my experience was that he didn't say those words, but it was like Inception. He would implant those thoughts in you to make you think that what he's, because I honored you so much, I'm gonna take it as gold. You know what I mean? Kind of, you understand what I'm saying? Kind of thing here. So I'm not saying that say that, you know, it's our fault because we're smart enough to discern it or whatever. But I'm just trying to show you the skillfulness of this area of how it can be used for good, or for bad. So that would be my kind of like, you know, response. You know, I don't know what Rev Tim wants to say.
No, I mean, Pastor Apostle Io said, I'm gonna bring out his apostleship now. Yeah, he said some, I mean, really key things, and I think a lot of things in the scripture, or the intention of it, is never just to go one way. So in a sense that if you're accountable to someone, they also have an accountability to you. And so as a spiritual leader, those that are accountable to me, I also am accountable to God and to them to fulfill the obligations of someone who submits their lives to me in that place of accountability. I think that's even for friendships and in our groups, that we're accountable. If I'm accountable to someone, they're accountable for first keeping what I've shared with them, nurturing it, not running it and telling it all around England and abroad. They're accountable, if they can, to give me wisdom and so on and so forth. Love, care, not too much judgment. And it's the same way in leadership as well. When people give you access, that much access to their lives, it comes with a responsibility. And I love what Pastor Ayo was saying about remit. The boundaries, there's boundaries that's designed to protect overstepping or overreach. And too many times we've seen leaders overstep and overreach the boundaries that someone becoming accountable to them brings, because they're also supposed to be accountable to what has given them the position to receive accountability from others. It's protection for all. But I think a lot of times when you get hurt, and you close up an area that was actually supposed to or intended to be a blessing to us. But I think accountable relationships across the board, spiritually, friendships, of course, marital relationships, it's supposed to be a blessing. It's supposed to make us better. Yeah. I think because accountability is not always negative. I think you mentioned earlier, accountability can be the best you can be. Accountability can get to the potential of who you are, of what God's placed on the inside of you. So it doesn't always have to have a negative context, but because we've been burned at times, we've opened ourselves up and felt, I think as I was saying, the risk of that. It can make us again I've tried that. Yeah, I'm not doing that again.
It didn't work for me again.
Yeah.
I want to add to like what you just said. I'm gonna let Abba chime in. Like, I feel like there's also a part to this where, because obviously the thing here really is that it's been abused, right? Yeah. So if we look at definition of abuse, it's like, you know, abnormal use, you know, something that's been used out of its proper conduct. Yeah. So I've clocked a pattern with this area of like spiritual manipulation, control, accountability, that more times, based on what Rev Tim just said now, if that leader is not operating in true accountability, it opens him up to consequently, whether intentionally or not as well. Because most times I don't even think it's intentional how these leaders do it. I know I'm a pastor, so it sounds like I'm kind of covering my guys. But I just want to be real with how, because I notice in my life, if I'm not as accountable, because when I'm accountable to somebody else, they're speaking to me. So there's probably areas in my life that they can now chime into that will now make me a better leader, that will not let me be prone to now doing things the same way that may end up controlling and manipulating others. Because, you know, when we look at the characteristics of control and manipulation, a lot of us do with personality as well, you know. I can actually just be a dominant person, and how I communicate and do things can instill fear, and therefore I realize that if I say something, they're going to do this. So control manipulation has even more to do with motive, agenda. Right. And you guys follow me now? I'm trying to break it down how it happens, and it can happen innocently through my personality or me trying to get something done, to now it becoming a way, and now I'm trying to use it to cover up things that I'm doing. And you know, I do it, and then obviously in your circumstance, there was big cover up. So I'm manipulating people to cover up my mess. And therefore you get into deeper, you know what I'm saying, kind of thing. So I feel like the pattern is that once you're practicing it, it helps you not step into the area of abusing that principle in the light of others. I don't know if you want to add to that, Brother Abba.
You know what? There's actually not much to add. If I'm being honest, I've got personal experiences, and you know, similar to yourself, very similar. I had a church situation that, you know, literally the same thing in many ways. So I think for me, what that said to me was effectively is a very dangerous place to be in regards to you giving yourself, you know, to someone. And then that being, you know, dismantled, that being, you know, destroyed in a split second. Yeah. And there's a real work that has to go back into rebuilding that. Because I think you've obviously spoken about, you know, the one side of, you know, being closed off to it. But I'm now realizing and recognizing even more so now. And how very easy it is to be on the path of, I'm not trying that again. I'm not going back again. And you just continue to coast for the rest of your life. You know, I was speaking to Ida over there, and he was, you know, telling me about, you know, instances, you know, where he knows people that have, you know, gone on that same journey. And it's not that they didn't want to come back into the faith or they didn't want to better themselves. Because I'm looking at and thinking now, this can be applied in every single area, marriage, relationship, church, or whatever. So now I'm thinking of, cool, how do I apply myself to be as accountable as I need to, despite the hurt and the pain of the past, because that would then ensure that I'm everything that I need to be for the future. Because now you're even saying it, and it's humbling me even more. If I'm not as accountable, even in my marriage, it's going to suffer. Forget, leadership is one thing, yes. But imagine, so if a leader's not accountable, his sheep will suffer, his flock will suffer. If I'm not accountable, my wife will suffer. And it's like, that is now more profound in that regard, even speaking here and seeing how that's so necessary. And something that even as men, you know, we need to do it, because it's so sad. It breaks my heart to see men leave the house. Like, it breaks my heart to see men abscond their positions, because I've seen the effects of it. Not necessarily in my life. My dad passed away, sadly enough, and he would have probably been a home, you know, great man before he passed away. But I've seen it in so many. We've all seen it, and it's so hard. For me, it's probably one of the most crushing things, because the position. One person, you know, explained it to me like this: the man should be the door for the house. If there is no door, the house gets battered in every season, effectively. And so imagine if, you know, the kids and the wife are open to every element of life. They're open to abuse in any single way, shape or form. And so for me, it's like, if I'm not accountable, I cannot give myself the best chance to be as effective for the home and for my family and for the future that I can be. And that's just what I took from that.
That's so good, man. That's so good. Because now we're seeing the goal of the enemy through our experience of being spiritually abused means then he sows a seed of that dysfunction to our lives. That's what essentially you're saying, bro. So when the Bible says, shut the shepherd and sheep will scatter, that's what it's saying. So the enemy's goal will always be to attack leadership. I've got a whole bunch of other leaders. Domino effect. That one's done. Next place. You understand what I'm saying there? So healing, guys, restoration, guys, is so crucial that we don't replicate something that hurt us out of our hurt. You know, so this has been a really enriching conversation, guys. And I guess the common thread I'm hearing here is community, intentionality, and just going through that process of admittance, acknowledging and really investing in those relationships that we're going to allow to have access to our lives in those areas. Like really actually invest in them. We have our group of friends, but let's have that, inner circle, that Peter, James, and John, where they're gonna see us for what we are. You know what I mean? And I think if there's any key point, any gadget takeaway, is like, who is your Peter, James, and John?
Yeah. That's good.
Who is your brother's keeper? So, brothers, I hope today's conversation was enriching. I hope you've heard valuable gems. I know I've been blessed. I've been encouraged. And let's change the narrative of what it means to be men of accountability. Let's use it for the benefit of society, of our families, communities, the culture. Let's rise up to the challenge of holding each other accountable, speaking the truth in love, not tolerating anything wicked, and holding a standard of righteousness that we should all pursue and desire. If you have any topics you want us to discuss, please leave some comments, leave some ideas in the comments. We'll hopefully go through them. Other than that, Ayokunu, 4 Man Up. See you soon. Blessings.